Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We're live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Wednesday, September 3rd. As always, I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we are into week 2. Big visits lined up this weekend. We're going to get into it all, break it down on the show. But guys, before we get started, hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. No doubt about it. Jump on board, hit subscribe for me, please. All right, also, jump on board of Rivals today. Get 1 year full access to The Athletic, plus all the On3 national content from Steve Wiltfong, Chad Simmons, Pete Nakos, plus all that fan site content as well. I'll put the link in the description of this video. All right, so today's show, we're talking Bama recruit reaction to that opener loss. We're talking Florida State recruit reaction to that opening win. We'll talk impact transfer quarterbacks and much more. But first, flip season is here. Josh Heupel and his staff got things kicked off with 2 monster flips right before the season started. Wide receiver Tristan Keys and top 100 edge Hezekiah Harris both flipped to Tennessee in the last 7 days. So with that, I think it's okay to say it. We are officially in flip season. We know we have visit season, then we have commitment season. When fall gets here, we're officially in flip season. And like I said, Tennessee got things started. I want to go over maybe the biggest flips of the cycle so far. And if we're going to start at the top, we have to start with number 1 wide receiver, Tristan Keys, right? Tristan Keys flipping from LSU to Tennessee just last week. It was a heartbreaker for the LSU Tigers, who last year they lost number 1 wide receiver, DeCorey Moore, to Oregon. And this year they lose number 1 wide receiver, Tristan Keys, to Tennessee. This one, I think it was evident when Tristan Keys did that photo shoot in the locker room on his official visit to Tennessee, where he was just decked out head to toe in orange. I kind of got the writing on the wall in that moment. Like, why would a rock solid LSU commitment put on all that orange and white? Well, now it makes sense. He was maybe doing a little early try on to see what it would look like. It looked good. I got to admit, he looks good in the orange. So we'll see what happens. Tristan Keys, I think, is going to sign with Tennessee. But I also think Miami, maybe a couple other programs, are not going to go down without a fight. But as it stands now, he is definitely locked in with the Volunteers. Another big flip that we saw was edge Richard Wesley. Now, he committed to Oregon it went viral. I don't know if it went viral for good reasons or for bad reasons, but Richard Wesley and Dan Lanning did cannonballs into the pool to, signify a commitment to Oregon. And then about 2 weeks later, Richard Wesley flipped that commitment to the Longhorns. One of the top edge rushers in America is headed to Texas. His recruitment, it's kind of closed, kind of open, but I think right now he's locked in with Texas. Another big flip that we experienced this offseason was linebacker Xavier Griffin. There was a time where he was locked in and committed to USC. That lasted a couple months, and then he flipped his commitment to Alabama. The 5-star linebacker is originally from Alabama, so staying closer to home played a big part in this. That USC commitment is long in the rear view, and he seems very happy with his decision to flip to Alabama. Another big one, James J.J. Johnson. He was committed to Georgia, and really in the middle of the week, I think it was in late July, just announced a flip to Texas. So Texas takes a big one from Georgia. Georgia kind of reeling with a lot of damage done by Texas, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They land Tyler Atkinson, who he was never committed to Georgia, but the way the insiders spoke about his recruitment, that was almost essentially a flip as well. Texas doing some damage in the state of Georgia. All right, now we get to linebacker Isaiah Williams. He flipped most recently from Ole Miss to FSU, but there is more under the surface of this one. Can we get a timeline here on Isaiah Williams? Look at this. It goes back to November of 2023 when he committed to Louisville. Then there was a flip to Syracuse, and then he made a stop in Tallahassee. That wasn't for long. That was about a year ago. It went from September of 2024 to November of 2024, and you remember what happened during those dates. I think Florida State probably lost about 10 games between September and November. So he makes a new commitment to the Florida Gators. That lasted a couple months, like literally 2. before he flips to Ole Miss. Not a lot of people thought that was going to stick, and guess what? It did not, because just 2 weeks ago, Isaiah Williams flipped that commitment from Ole Miss to Florida State. For those scoring at home, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flips. Will there be another? You guys let me know in the comments section below. But seriously, those were my biggest flips of the cycle. What were your biggest flips? There's some big ones I'm leaving out. So if you guys got any, let me know, comment section below. The football season is here. All is right with the world. Well, unless you're an Alabama fan, because if you go on social media, they are freaking out right now after a 31-17 loss on the road at Florida State to open the 2025 season. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer, a lot of questions there. A lot of questions about the program and everything beyond the offense, defense. But you know who's not asking questions? A lot of recruits. You know, they tend to be more level-headed. And I read Adam Gorney's article on Alabama commits not concerned after stunning loss to start the season. So let's bring in national analyst Adam Gorney. Adam, were you surprised by some of the responses you got from recruits?
Yeah, when I even wrote this, when teenage boys are the ones making the most level-headed decisions. Social media has gone crazy, and I get it. I mean, Kalen DeBoer is 5-5 in his last 10. You're comparing him to Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time. The expectations are super high, but then you hear like the crazy rumors, like there's DoorDash, people coming into the hotel at 1 a.m. and they weren't prepared, and the sideline was terrible and all those kinds of things. But when you talk to recruits, they've kind of circled the wagons here. They are not taking other visits yet. They're not getting too worried. Now, if things go really south, this is definitely a team that could be 2-2. They play Georgia in a few weeks. We'll see. Certainly when there's blood in the water, SEC teams are going to come after a lot of these guys. But right now they believe in the vision. And Josh, we all know this, like if the players at Alabama right now aren't getting it done, these recruits might see it as an opportunity for them to get on the field even earlier.
Sure. Recruits kind of see things as a game by game. What it is fans see it as we have one loss. Does this mean we're going to have 5 losses? Whereas I think recruits can understand because they go through it as well. They take it game by game. So one game isn't going to ruin it for the entire commitment class. Speaking of, you talked to some big-time names on that commit list, including 4-star quarterback commit Jet Tamala, who went out and I think threw or accounted for like 4 or 5 touchdowns in week 1. What did Jet Tamala have to say?
Yeah, he was basically like, look, I already made my decision. I trust these guys, and I'm sticking with them. And like you said, it's one game, and it was a very disappointing performance. Alabama has more talent on the field than Florida State. But, as the saying goes, hungry dog runs fast, and Florida State just played hungrier and meaner, and there was a lot of momentum in that stadium, and Alabama just never countered it. So, but Jet Tamala was a guy that was basically like, everyone settle down, calm down, we'll be fine. We have a lot of talent. Kalen DeBoer didn't forget how to coach overnight. Ryan Grubb didn't forget how to call plays overnight. I think things will be fine here. And like a lot of these coaches have said, from Brian Kelly to Dabo Swinney to Kalen DeBoer after that loss, everybody is so amped up for week 1 that it's like, it feels like bigger than the playoffs sometimes. So when they come out and lay a dud in week 1, it feels like it's a little bit over. But especially with the playoff and how many SEC teams are going to get in, my suspicion is that Alabama will be fine here.
Yeah. I mean, was there any concern from recruits that you talked to?
None. Now, some didn't get back to me, so maybe the unspoken word is speaking loudest here. Maybe some of those guys might be a little concerned. Maybe if Georgia lays a big number on them in a couple weeks, some guys get concerned. Here's the thing: if you start seeing guys slipping in visits, being quiet, and showing up at other SEC schools, that's where things might get heated. And a lot of guys, even, Chris Lowe and Andy Staples and at On3 are writing that some boosters are getting a little worried when the money dries up. That could get interesting. But, Kalen DeBoer basically has won as many games as any coach in college football. Now, it hasn't been on the biggest stages, but he took Washington to the national championship just a few years ago. The guy can coach. He knows what he's doing. No recruits have basically come out and said, screw this, I'm going somewhere else. Even I'm going to visit somewhere else. So we will see how that plays out over the next couple weeks. If the season really goes down the drain, I'm sure that there will be some flips, but Alabama is still Alabama.
Yeah. And one more thing to watch. You got to watch those Instagram bios, those Twitter bios. Can't be clearing out all the photos. Those are the signs to watch. We know, we follow recruiting. We know what it means when they clear out those Instagram bios. So none of that happening yet. Alabama fans, you guys talk to us. Who's right in this situation? Is it the recruits or is it the crazy fans? Let us know. Comment section below. Florida State and their recruit reaction, much different from the Alabama fan reaction. Florida State, boy, they needed this win.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Mike Norvell all offseason basically had to be put on tranquilizers because he was just so amped up about getting the momentum back at Florida State. And it really could not have worked out better. I mean, it could have worked out a lot worse. Alabama could have come in and just throttled them, and everybody was just like, here we go again, another 2-10 season. So it is very hard to get that momentum flipped after you've done so well. I mean, just 2 seasons ago, we were, undefeated season, left out of the college football playoff to 2-10, and now back to beating Alabama. And, I give a lot of credit. And sometimes I think, home field advantage is a little overrated, because if Alabama came in and punched them in the mouth and it was 21-0, no one would be cheering in that stadium. They'd probably be booing, and it would turn on Florida State. But, that place was amped up from the beginning. It was raining and people were taking their shirts off. It was just like a great environment for Florida State. Yeah. Even after the game, Mike Norvell started his post-game press conference with "Welcome back to Doak Campbell Stadium." It was like, it felt like Florida State again. Everybody was going crazy. So, and the recruits felt it. Every 2027, 2028 kid that I talked to absolutely loved it. Everybody sort of reinforced their commitment, and they're back on the Noles train here.
Yeah, I mean, last year watching DJU back there being a statue versus this year with Thomas Castellanos, and I know it's only week 1, but it just seemed like a massive spark. So when you were talking to these recruits, were they surprised by FSU's performance?
I think they were like pleasantly surprised. That they went into it guarded or, hopeful that something could be turned there. A lot of them went there too, and let's be honest, to double dip and kind of see Alabama on the road too, which is certainly a trend that, a lot of guys go to see both teams because they're being recruited by both schools. And that just played into Norvell's hands even more. I mean, Alabama's sideline was glum. They couldn't get anything going. The offense looked terrible. Ty Simpson couldn't complete a pass. The defense looked slow. Bray Hubbard is not running and getting into the end zone against guys. Things that Nick Saban would just, like, his head would pop off to allow. And so recruits look at that stuff too. How many defensive back recruits do I talk to that say that they basically just watch both defensive backs scheme the entire game, that they're locked in on different things than just the normal fan. So they loved the atmosphere. They loved how Mike Norvell was selling it. They loved the post game. Everything about it really worked super well for the Seminoles, and now it seems like the momentum is back in their favor.
Yeah, and Noles got a top 20 class even heading into this matchup. I think maybe even sitting there around number 15 in the country. So is this momentum sustainable? Can they build on this 2026 class between now and signing day?
Yeah, they lost a lot of guys, but I think for 2026, the hay's probably in the barn. But the 2027s that I talked to, Tremont Collins was there. He's a Florida commit. He absolutely loved it. Jalen Scott, an Auburn commit, was there. He absolutely loved it. DQ Forkpa, who's kind of been wavering between Florida State, and some others, was there. He loved it. Kennedy Green, who had been committed to Mississippi State. So there are still some names out there that are definitely very involved, but this really helps with 2027. And the reason is because if Florida State had back-to-back really terrible seasons, they would be getting eaten up on the recruiting trail. But, Norvell did a great job sort of, getting the guys back in 2026, getting those guys to believe. The final touches will be put in there, but the real momentum goes into 2027.
All right, FSU fans, talk to Adam and I. How have you recalibrated your expectations for this FSU 2025 season? Let us know. What was your win total before the season started? What's your win total now that you've seen the Noles beat Alabama? Let us know. Comment section below. Talk a little UF recruiting as the Florida Gators. They got a big visit weekend lined up in Gainesville. The Gators are going to be packing the stands with top recruits as the USF Bulls come to town before UF hits the road for a couple games. Now, we're going to take a closer look at this visit list and break it all down. But first, Gator fans, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. We are talking Gator recruiting all season long. You don't want to miss any of it. All right, let's bring in national analyst Marcus Benjamin. Now we got a 4:15 Eastern kickoff. Plenty of time for recruits to arrive in Gainesville, including one out of Georgia. Running back Carson Baker. Now he is committed to UF, but Chad Simmons wrote an article earlier today. Two teams, FSU and South Carolina, still in pursuit. Marcus, is UF in a good position with Baker?
I think so. I think the Gators are in a strong position to keep him as long as they continue the success on the field.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned that in the story that Chad Simmons wrote, that he kind of wants to see the team continue to be successful on the field, and I think that's going to be key for his recruitment going forward. Florida State is a team, obviously, that the Gators will play later on in the season, and I would imagine that he's going to be at that game as well. So that could be critical to his signing. South Carolina not on the schedule for the Gators this season, but Kentucky is also a team to watch here. The Gators do play the Wildcats, so I think that's a team that is also kind of in the mix as well. I've heard Auburn could have a chance as well. So I think it really kind of depends, even in this NIL era that we're in. I think it really kind of depends a lot on the success on the field for the Florida Gators to keep a lot of their recruits, including Carson Baker, the talented running back out of Georgia.
Yeah, and we saw it at the end of the season last year when Florida it started clicking and they started winning more ball games. Recruiting kind of momentum came with it. So Gators off to a quick start, and we're going to talk about another player out of the state of Georgia, offensive tackle Tyler Chukayem. Now, he is a bit of a sleeper when he committed to UF. He's out of the state of Georgia, as I said, and it seems like over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks, Georgia turning up a little bit more heat on him. Is this an important visit for the Gators?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an important visit. Him being an offensive lineman, he wants to see consistency from the O-line of the Gators last week. The score was of course what you wanted, 55-0 against Long Island. But they did give up 11 tackles for loss. So that is a cause for concern for a team like Long Island to put up a stat line like that against the mighty Florida Gators. So I'm sure Tyler's going to be watching that, and the Bulldogs are going to be watching, I think, as well. And the fact that they were a late offer for him is intriguing. So if the Bulldogs can get him on campus, then I think this is a recruitment that you need to watch until signing day. If the Bulldogs, like I said, indeed get him on campus for a visit, or if it's the cocktail party or whatever we're calling it these days between Georgia and Florida, and if Georgia stomps on the Gators that day, then that could be something to watch as far as him flipping to Georgia later down the line.
Yeah, definitely think this is one to watch later down the line, but Gators getting him back on campus, that's a big one. All right. Another bit under the radar, at least when he committed to Nebraska, CJ Bronow, the 4-star DB, he flipped to UF already. He's expected in Gainesville this weekend. Does he have any other trips that he's considering taking this season?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility that he could visit Michigan. I know Michigan is also in the mix for him, and Nebraska is still kind of hanging around his recruitment as well. I think he's an absolutely outstanding talent myself. Just a really outstanding DB with great coverage skills, great ball skills, and just lightning fast. I think he runs, close to a 10-8 or something like that in 100 meters. So this is a lightning fast DB that any school in the country would want. And he says he's solid with the Gators, and he has shut down his recruitment. But I think, again, this kind of comes down to the performance of the Gators on the field for the rest of the season, because you got teams like Nebraska and Michigan who are trying to have, great seasons themselves and continue to recruit out of the state of Florida. I think those two teams still have a shot at the product out of Windermere, Florida.
Yeah, but just keep getting him on campus and reminding him why he is committed to the Florida Gators, and the rest will work out. All right, let's talk about a really intriguing name here. Tight end, offensive lineman, I don't know, whatever you want to call him. Big-bodied athlete, Hezzy Kent, made his decision right here on the Rivals Recruits channel in July, committed to the Florida Gators. But is his recruitment shut down?
Absolutely not, in my opinion. I think there's a couple of teams that are still in the mix for Hezzy Kent. Outstanding talent, can play multiple positions as you mentioned. I think it's going to come down to if Miami can get Kent on campus for their home game against the Gators, and if the Hurricanes, have a strong performance like they did against Notre Dame, I think they're in a position to possibly get Kent to join the 2026 class of the Hurricanes. Miami only has, one tight end in their class right now with Izzy Briggs, who is an outstanding talent from California. But I think Miami still wants to add another tight end, and Hezzy Kent would be an outstanding add to that class. Another team to watch is Texas. I mean, Texas is a team that has been very successful in getting Florida kids to add to their class, including, of course, James Johnson, Derek Cooper, and Dia Bell, just to name a few players from Florida who are committed to that 2026 class. And I wouldn't be surprised if Texas kind of jumps in the mix. Florida does host Texas as well, so that is a game to kind of watch. Of course, I think Kent will be attending that game as well as many other recruits. So I think the results of the field of those two games can weigh heavily on where Kent signs in the end.
All right. Now, you are located down in South Florida, and in South Florida on Sunday, there's a bunch of flip targets on campus for that Miami Notre Dame game. So maybe they won't be in Gainesville this weekend, but I expect to see names like Calvin Russell, James J.J. Johnson, Derek Cooper, potentially in Gainesville at some point this season. What big names is UF trying to flip in South Florida? Hey, inside scoop listeners and football fans in general, whether you're cheering on Clemson Tigers or the Troy Trojans, this Saturday, September 6th, make sure you drop by the Whataburger food truck during your tailgate. Get ready to bring home the W early with a hot, fresh Whataburger in hand. And no matter who comes out on top, when you take your team to Whataburger, you know you'll feel like a winner. With food made fresh and hot every time, 24/7, we'll see you at the game, and we'll see you at Whataburger.
Well, I think the main one is James Johnson. James Johnson, the top defensive tackle of the 2026 class, I think is the main player to watch here. I do not think the Gators are really involved with Derek Cooper much, or Calvin Johnson, or Calvin Russell. Not Megatron. Calvin Russell. Although Calvin Russell could be the next Megatron just based on his size and ability. I do think James Johnson is really the realistic player from South Florida that Florida could flip from Texas. I do think they are going to try to get him on campus for several games, and I think they've been maintained contact with Johnson throughout his recruitment, and I think they're going to continue to be a player until Johnson decides to sign.
Yeah, I mean, he is committed. Well, he's already flipped from Georgia to Texas. He's committed to Texas. But, I mean, you talked to him after that Miami game. It seemed like he really enjoyed his trip down to South Florida. Or maybe even are the Canes maybe even out front of the Gators when it comes to who's going to flip him?
I would say right now, yes. I would say that just because Miami has the Hall of Famer on their staff and Jason Taylor, and I think that's
Sure.
a really great selling point for the Hurricanes. And Johnson, I'm sure, will be in attendance for that Florida game as well. Of course, the proximity, him going to Miami Northwestern High School and just being that close to the stadium, to the school,
Yeah.
I think is advantage for the Hurricanes as well. So yeah, I do think at this point the Hurricanes are out in front when it comes to flipping James Johnson, but I wouldn't count the Gators out at all, especially if they come up with a victory down in South Florida.
All right. Well, as we tape this, it's only midweek. We know these visitor lists get added to by the day, so we'll see. Maybe some surprises. Maybe we see James Johnson. Heck, we didn't know Anthony Tank Jones was going to show up at Miami. Maybe we see a Braylon Womack, a 5-star visit in Gainesville this weekend. You never know. UF fans, talk to us. Let us know. What do you think the score? What's your score prediction for USF, UF? Put it in the comment section below. Let's talk a little transfer portal, especially at the quarterback position. The transfer portal, better or worse, it is now a mainstay in college football, and programs are using it to upgrade, especially at the quarterback position. So we're going to talk with On3 insider Pete Nakos about he wrote an article about his top 10 transfer quarterbacks. We're going to hit on the top 5. Let's start at number 5 with Auburn quarterback Jackson Arnold. He came in and did what it took for Auburn to get a huge road win over Baylor. Pete, why did Jackson Arnold make your list at number 5?
Yeah, Jackson Arnold comes in and doesn't exactly quell all the concerns about how great of a passer he is, but he rushes for over 100 yards on the ground, the most in a debut, I believe, since Cam Newton did it at Auburn. I think what Jackson Arnold did on Friday night against Baylor was the differentiator when it comes to Hugh Freeze winning that season opener.
Yeah, and just off to a great start in week 1. That's what you want to see. The transfer quarterback thing, it's not always clicking in week 1, but it had to for Auburn to get that road win, and that's just what they did. All right, moving on down the list to number 4. Now, we got Joey Aguilar, and I do not see Nico Imaliava on this list, so it seems like, at least in week 1, Tennessee got the better of this trade. We'll call it a trade. Joey Aguilar seems like, he has a spot there. It's going to fit into this offense in Tennessee.
It was really interesting to watch Joey Aguilar against Syracuse, sorry. And, you always wonder in a situation like that, what does the new transfer quarterback look like? He came in this summer. How's he looking Josh Heupel's offense? And he was firing on all cylinders. Like, he looked the part of what Josh Heupel wants at quarterback. He threw some balls that I don't know if Tennessee was throwing last year. So we'll see how it all kind of comes together. SEC play starts with Georgia visiting Knoxville in a couple weeks, but definitely one of the better quarterbacks, in my opinion, that we saw in week 1.
All right. Then at number 3, great performance here. Miami quarterback Carson Beck against Notre Dame at home. And, I'll be honest, I thought Carson Beck looked more comfortable behind that Miami offensive line in week 1 than maybe his whole entire career at Georgia. I'm not saying Georgia didn't have a great offensive line. I'm just saying Carson Beck looks like he fits this Miami offense.
That was the most comfortable we saw Carson Beck since 2023. He had the wide receivers that he wants. He was, similar to how Joey Aguilar looked comfortable. He looked comfortable after arriving in January. Him and Shannon Dawson are clearly on the same page, and that is going to be a situation that I think we're all going to watch all year, because if Carson Beck has the time and he has the wide receivers that he had against Notre Dame, he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country and have Miami squarely in this college football playoff conversation.
All right. And then at number 2, Cal quarterback Jaron Key Sagapolutelli, and we call him JKS on this channel. And a lot of people, not the people that watch this channel because they know why he's a transfer, but a lot of people probably watching college football in week 1, Pete, probably said, hey, how's he a transfer? He's a true freshman.
Yeah, JKS flipped from Cal to Oregon late in the recruiting process, showed up at Oregon in January right after Rose Bowl practice. I think he was there for a couple days for Rose Bowl practice, and it just wasn't happening. It wasn't the right fit for him. He goes in the portal, I want to say like 48, 72 hours later, he's back at Cal, and then he beats out Ohio State transfer Devin Brown for the starting job in fall camp. And it clearly was the right decision, the way he performed against Oregon State, threw some of the better balls I think we saw in week 1.
All right. And then the number one quarterback transfer in America, Florida State quarterback Tommy Castellanos, at least the number one quarterback in week 1.
Yeah.
Hey, he said it. Nick Saban can't save him. That's true. Alabama gets beat down by Florida State in week 1, and Thomas Castellanos had a lot to do with it. Let's talk game time. All of a sudden, the college and NFL seasons are upon us, but guess what? We need our tickets, and getting deals on last-minute tickets can be frustrating when all you want is to be there for the moment your team runs out onto the field, and the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets, experiences, and it only takes a few taps. The app's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee, it means you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included. So, what you see is what you pay. That's why I use the Game Time app. It's super simple, and it makes the experience of buying great seats a breeze. I've even seen NFL tickets on there as low as $100. So, Game Time makes it easy to find and buy NFL tickets and tickets for every kind of event in your area. Also, the Game Time lowest price guarantee. It's where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference to guarantee you're getting the lowest price. All right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code INSIDESCOOP. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's INSIDESCOOP for 20% off.
Yeah, you know, Josh, usually when we do these rankings, it's like, okay, who threw the most touchdowns? Who had the best completion percentage? You know, I know Tommy Castellanos only threw for like 150 yards, but he literally stood on everything he told on 3 in June. Mm-hmm. And that alone has him at number one, but then you think about what he did in tearing up Alabama on the ground game. I think he's far and away number one.
Mm. All right, well, we can't talk transfer portal without talking dollars and cents. So when it comes to your top 10, where's the greatest value? Because we talked about a lot of these guys, price tags as high as $3-4 million for a starting quarterback. So at least in week 1, where's the value?
Yeah, so the two guys who are definitely showing the most value right away, number one, Thomas Castellanos. He's going to make over $800,000 this year at Florida State, which is a good payday for him. But he's definitely, after what he did week 1 against Alabama, he's clearly one of the more impact transfer quarterbacks we're going to see this year. And we obviously got to see how things play out. But when it comes to the dollar and cents, that's a great value for Florida State. And then the other guy is Joey Aguilar. So he comes in, the App State UCLA transfer. He comes in a spot where Nico Iamalevo was going to make about $2.4 million this year.
What was he asking for?
He was obviously asking for more money than that, Josh. But Joey's going to make about 1.2 this year at Tennessee. Oh, wow. So that's great value for Tennessee. They actually cut down on what they're going to spend at the quarterback position. And it definitely seemed like they had the better version of the trade on Saturday.
Yeah, cut the spending, increase the production, at least in week 1 for Tennessee fans. So we'll see. We'll continue to watch that. Pete, before I let you go, any other non-quarterback transfers that really popped and caught your attention in week 1?
Yeah, if you go over to on3.com, we got a whole story on the other top 10 transfers from week 1, the non-quarterbacks. Some names right off the bat. Virginia Tech transfer, LSU cornerback Mansour Delane probably was one of the more impactful transfers that we saw. And then, wide receivers had a very productive weekend. You had CJ Daniels, the one-handed catch against Notre Dame for the touchdown. Mario Craver had the most receiving yards in a debut since Christian Kirk at A&M. And then you get the Idaho transfer, Jordan Dwyer, tore up the North Carolina defense on Monday night. So a lot of other transfers making some instant impacts across the country.
All right, you guys talk to us. Who do you think made the biggest impact when it came to transfers? Let us know. Comment section below. Let's talk impact freshmen. There was a couple former 5-star quarterbacks that are now showing their value on the football field. I know it's only week 1, but we already had some impressive performances just last year. Some of these guys were high school seniors, and now they're making big plays on the biggest stage. I got Director of Scouting and Ranking, Charles Power, here on who is making an impact from day 1. Now, we're going to start with Jaron Key Sagapulatelli, also known as JKS. We'll just call him JKS on this channel from now on. But he was 6 for 6 in his debut. 6 for 6 starting the game. 2 TDs on his first 2 drives. Cal wins big, and he ends up being the true freshman of the week. Charles, why did we kind of get a sense that this was coming?
Yeah, Josh, JKS was the biggest senior riser among the quarterback group in the 2025 cycle. And from my time doing this, the deepest quarterback group at the top. So it's no surprise that we're seeing these guys make huge plays on Saturdays in week 1 that early. But, just a big-time arm talent. He just set social media ablaze with some of the throws he was making. And, and really – when I go back to last fall, watching him in high school, it was must-watch TV. I watched, I think, him every week. That was one of the first games I would watch, just with the arm talent and the high-level throws he can make. So we saw him do that on Saturday. I think moving forward, Cal is appointment viewing if you want to watch quarterback play just with his arm talent. We had NFL people on X going just berserk over some of the throws he was making. So I think there's so much to be excited about with him. I think he showed just the high-end arm talent, just the natural quarterbacking ability to come in that spot on the road in his first game. And it was super exciting, and it really jives with everything we saw from him as a high school senior, and that made him a 5-star outlier for us in the 2025 cycle.
Yeah, was it kind of funny to watch the reaction from the college football media world? Like, who is this guy? Yeah. Meanwhile, like you said, he was our biggest riser. I mean, at one point, he was a sleeper, but in the end, we had him right there in the top 10. So Jaron Keesack-Pulitelli, I mean, he was turning some heads. What was it like to watch him on Saturday?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And to your point, I mean, it was so much fun to see everybody kind of discover him collectively. I mean, if you were watching that late block of games, you had, Utah, UCLA, that was kind of a blowout. So everybody kind of turns it to Cal, Oregon State, and the collective college football world is basically introduced to him, in week 1 as a true freshman starter. So I think it was almost like a best case scenario for a college debut. And I'm really excited to kind of see what he can do once Cal gets into ACC play. Yeah.
And then on the flip side of the coin, you had Bryce Underwood making his debut for Michigan, 251 yards, 1 TD. And unlike JKS, everybody was watching Bryce Underwood. Everybody has expectations of Bryce Underwood, the number 1 quarterback flipping from LSU to Michigan late in the cycle. Charles, did he look good in week 1? Let's talk game time. All of a sudden, the college and NFL seasons are upon us, but guess what? We need our tickets, and getting deals on last-minute tickets can be frustrating when all you want is to be there for the moment your team runs out onto the field. And the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets, experiences, and it only takes a few taps. The app's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee, it means you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included. So, what you see is what you pay. That's why I use the Game Time app. It's super simple, and it makes the experience of buying great seats a breeze. I've even seen NFL tickets on there as low as $100. So Game Time makes it easy to find and buy NFL tickets and tickets for every kind of event in your area. Also, the Game Time lowest price guarantee. It's where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference to guarantee you're getting the lowest price. All right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code INSIDESCOOP. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's INSIDESCOOP for 20% off.
I thought Bryce Underwood looked outstanding. If it weren't for JKS, he would be leading, kind of every freshman headline coming out of week 1. First off, we know Bryce Underwood is an elite talent. When he was coming out of high school, I referred to him as a mega talent. Mm-hmm. He was our wire-to-wire number 1 overall prospect. The first time we've ever had that. So obviously, like he has immense talent, and I think most importantly, the talent popped. You could see the arm strength. He made high-level throws over the middle of the field. But I think what really stood out to me is for his first start, Bryce Underwood had complete control over the offense. He was like he would look like an alpha in that setting. Now it's New Mexico. They have a much tougher game on the road against Oklahoma this week. But I think it was exactly what you want to see from your first-time true freshman starter. I mean, Bryce Underwood, I think he just turned 18. Like, he is young for the cycle, and he looked like, a 20, 21-year-old taking snaps. So I think, the physical talent, the maturity, the command of the offense, and I think Michigan's going to need him to really drive their offense this year. When you look at, the skill players they have, it's really him, Alabama transfer Justice Haynes at running back, an older tight end in Marlon Klein, but they're really going to need those three guys to kind of drive the ship once they get into Big Ten play. So I'm excited to see kind of how he progresses, but man, he looked like the top talent that he was billed as coming out of high school.
Yeah, Michigan recruiting is on fire, but some of that talent isn't there yet. So we'll see what Bryce Underwood can do. We know that the talent is coming as he develops. We'll see in year 2. But right now, he's doing more with less. So kind of fun to watch that. All right, let's talk about Houston Longstreet. Now, he's a backup at USC, but he got in the game and got some run against Missouri State. 9 for 9, 1 touchdown. He also ran for 2 more. What did you see from him that translated from his 5-star ranking as a recruit?
Yeah, Hassan Longstreet is an elite physical talent, just twitchy arm plus athlete. And we saw both of those aspects in his college debut at USC. I mean, I think that's about as good of a stat line as you could get as a backup. 9 for 9, 3 total touchdowns. I thought the running ability, the scrambling ability was really impressive, and that jives with what we saw from him out of high school. I mean, Hassan Longstreet for us was an upside play based off of the elite arm talent. I think he had arguably the strongest arm in that cycle, which is saying a ton, and his athletic ability. So I think when you're looking at USC kind of gaming this out, I think it was important for the USC staff to get him reps early, and I think he looks like the quarterback of the future in Los Angeles, whether that's later this year or next year. But I think you have to be really, really excited about what he showed, and I think he has just immense upside as he continues to develop.
Yeah, you can tell they definitely wanted to get him a little experience under his belt in week 1. All right, so speaking of week 1, who else caught your eye early in their freshman year?
Yeah, we have a bunch of quarterbacks starting, but I look at Malik Washington starting at Maryland. A little up and down to start the game, but really kind of settled in their win over FAU. Strong arm. He's got plus size, plus athlete. So there's a lot of physical tools to like with Malik Washington.
All right, I want to ask you about one more. Now, he's not an impact freshman yet. He might be soon. He's still in high school, but you got on the road on Friday night and you watch Georgia quarterback commit Jared Curtis win an overtime thriller. So how did his characteristics kind of stack up to some of the names we just talked about?
Yeah, so Josh, if you had asked me at this time last year, who were the top arm talents in high school football, regardless of cycle, I would have said Bryce Underwood, Hassan Longstreet, Jaron Sagapulatelli, and Jared Curtis. So he's kind of in that tier just in terms of throwing the football, arm talent, the different types of throws he can make, driving the ball into small windows, all of that. This was a big game for Jared Curtis in our evaluation of him. Does not play the strongest competition at his high school on a week-to-week basis. This was the best team he's going to play in his season. So I said, okay, wow. I need to go to this. They have college prospects. This is a top 5 team in the state of Tennessee. And he put his team on the back and basically single-handedly beat Innsworth. It was, I think, from my time of going to high school games, it's one of the more gutsy performances I've seen just on an individual level. He had 320 yards of offense, 6 touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions, and they were down 2 scores most of the game. And I think just the level of tenacity, willpower. I mean, I thought he was knocked out of the game a couple times, and they really relied on his legs and his improvisational skills and scrambling ability because his receivers kind of struggled to get open in this game. So I think there was just willing his team to victory and just being a warrior in that setting was super encouraging because we go to these events in the offseason, we get a feel for the physical tools, but you really don't know how quarterbacks compete until you see the pads come on. And I think this was just a really encouraging one-game exposure, Jared Curtis. One game. So there's so much more that goes into our evaluation process and scouting process than just one game. But I think it was a big one for Curtis if you're going to drill it down to one game, given the competition level, given the stage and stepping up. And I thought it was really encouraging and just a great individual showing for Jared Curtis.
Yeah, I bet Georgia fans are fired up to hear that. All right, guys, get in the comments section. Talk to us. I know it's only week 1, but who do you think will be the true freshman of the year? JKS got it in week 1, but Bryce Underwood, Houston Longstreet, there were some really good performances. So let us know who is your true freshman of the year.